Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters of the African soil today, we do not gather merely to listen, we gather to awaken. The man you are about to hear is not just a speaker. He is a voice that echoes the pain of the past, the urgency of the present, and the promise of the future. He is a fierce defender of truth, a relentless advocate of justice, and a son of Africa whose words carry fire, conviction, and clarity. He has spoken in parliaments, universities, streets, and villages not for fame, but for purpose. He challenges the comfortable, disturbs the silent, and inspires the bold. He reminds us not just of who we are, but of who we are meant to become. He does not speak to impress, he speaks to ignite. Prepare not just your ears, but your conscience. Prepare not just to hear, but to rethink. For when he speaks, excuses die, illusions collapse, and eyes are opened. They told you that you are powerless. They told you to sit down, stay silent, and wait your turn. They told you the system is too strong, the leaders too corrupt, the future too dark. And after hearing it so many times, you began to believe it. Not because it's true, but because repetition is a dangerous thing, especially when it's wrapped in fear. But today I must tell you a truth many will not dare say. You are not powerless. You've simply been conditioned to feel that way. And if your eyes are open, then you must unlearn what they taught you and relearn who you truly are. The conditioning began long before you were born. Colonization may have ended on paper, but the psychological warfare never stopped. From the classroom to the screen, from the boardroom to the pulpit, the message has been clear. Accept your place, follow the script, and never question the order. You were not taught to think, you were taught to memorize. You were not raised to challenge, you were raised to obey. And in this quiet mental slavery, you lost your sense of control. You learned to survive, but not to thrive. So today, many walk with bowed heads, not from humility, but from programmed helplessness. You ask, what can I do? And answer, nothing. You see injustice and scroll past it. You see corruption and say, that's just how it is. You see opportunity and assume it belongs to someone else, and in doing so, you become exactly what the system wants present, but powerless. But that is not your destiny. You were not born to be a passive observer. You were born to be a force of change. The problem is not that you lack ability. The problem is that your mind has been locked. And the key is truth that has been hidden in plain sight. You live in a continent rich with minerals, land, and youth. You speak languages that carry centuries of wisdom. You carry genes that survived slavery, colonialism, and conflict. You are the product of resilience, and yet you act as if you are fragile. Why? Because the system told you that you are nothing without it. Because it made you fear failure more than regret. Because it convinced you that asking questions is rebellion instead of responsibility. But let me tell you this, every empire that oppressed our ancestors was built on one thing: control of the mind. They broke the body through chains, but they ruled the mind through fear. That is why you must unlearn fear. Unlearn the fear of standing up, unlearn the fear of being different, unlearn the fear of failure, because those who changed history were never the most comfortable. They were the most courageous. When you understand that you are not powerless, you begin to walk differently. You begin to speak with intention. You begin to act without apology. You begin to see that problems are not punishments, they are invitations. Invitations to rise, to think, to build, to lead. But as long as you believe you cannot, you will not. Look around you, see how we blame the government, the economy, the West. And yes, those forces are real, but so is your will, so is your mind, so is your ability to start something, to build something, to challenge something. No one can take that from you unless you give it away, and that is what too many have done. We have handed over our power, not because it was stolen, but because it was never fully claimed. The day you stop believing in your power is the day you start living someone else's story. And this is what has happened to too many Africans. We live in stories we did not write. We dream dreams that were sold to us. We chase versions of success that are not ours. And in doing so, we forget that power begins with ownership. Not ownership of things, but ownership of self, of your thoughts, your values, your purpose. This message is not just for the young, nor just for the poor, nor just for the educated. It is for anyone who has ever felt invisible in their own land. You are not invisible, you are not voiceless, you are not powerless, you are simply unawakened, and once your eyes are open, you must never close them again. You must begin to act, to speak, to live with the awareness that you are enough not because the world told you so, but because truth does. There is a strange thing that happens when truth is hidden in plain sight. People walk past it every day, they talk around it, they even suffer from it, but they do not see it. Not because it is invisible, but because they have stopped looking, stopped asking, stopped thinking. And when the mind stops searching for truth, it becomes easy to accept lies dressed as facts. That is what has happened to too many of our people. We have been trained to look without seeing and to listen without hearing. We have become familiar with shadows and forgotten how to chase the light. The truth is not buried in the ocean or locked in some distant archive. The truth is everywhere, etched into our streets, written in our histories, visible in our suffering, and present in our leaders' actions. But we have been conditioned to look the other way. They told us that history is just dates and names, not a mirror. They told us politics is dirty, so stay away. They told us religion is only about the next life, so don't ask questions about this one. And slowly we stopped interrogating the world around us. We stopped noticing the patterns. We stopped demanding clarity. Ask yourself, how many of us know who truly owns the resources in our lands? How many of us understand the laws that govern our lives? How many of us can explain how policies are made, who benefits and who loses? How many of us trace where our money goes, where our taxes end up, and how contracts are awarded? We do not know, not because we cannot, but because we have been distracted. Distracted by entertainment, by survival, by shallow debates and foreign dreams. Distracted to the point that ignorance has become normal, but ignorance is not peace. It is the silence before the storm. There is a reason why so many systems benefit from your blindness. If you could see the truth, you would demand better. If you could see how power moves, you would rise up and take your place. If you could see how wealth is extracted, you would not celebrate crumbs. If you could see the full picture, you would stop being content with fragments. And that is why the truth is kept just out of reach. Because a people who know the truth are a people who cannot be controlled. Look carefully and you will notice that everything around you is connected. The poor education is not accidental. It ensures you do not think critically. The corruption is not accidental. It keeps you dependent. The division between tribes and languages is not accidental. It prevents unity. Even the content you consume daily is not innocent. It numbs your mind, fills your time, and keeps your eyes closed while others are building empires on your back. The media shows you celebrities, but not the stolen wealth. The curriculum teaches you foreign poets, but not your own heroes. The news tells you about violence, but not about the causes. And the system tells you to be patient, even as it delays justice. Open your eyes. Ask who benefits from your confusion. Ask who profits from your silence. Ask who builds palaces while the people remain in poverty. These are not conspiracy theories. They are visible realities. But even when truth knocks, many refuse to open the door, because truth is uncomfortable. Truth demands action. Truth forces you to stop blaming others and start asking what you are doing to change things. That is why so many prefer lies. Lies are sweet. They let you sleep. They let you blame. They let you remain small. But truth wakes you up. And once you are awake, you can never go back to sleep peacefully. This awakening is not for the faint of heart. It will make you angry. It will make you restless. It will force you to confront your own role in the very system you despise. It will expose your laziness, your fear, your comfort. But it is necessary, because only when your eyes are open can you truly begin to live with purpose. Only when your eyes are open can you choose your path with intention. Do not wait for someone else to reveal the truth to you. Seek it, read, observe, question everything, even me. Truth is not loyalty to a speaker. It is loyalty to reality, and once you find it, hold it tight, because the world will try to blind you again with fear, with noise, with glitter. But if you hold on, you will begin to see clearly. You will begin to see that the power to transform your life, your community, your nation, is not in waiting for change. It is in seeing the truth and moving with it. When an African begins to think, to ask, to rise, to dream independently, something strange happens. The world begins to tremble, not in fear of violence or chaos, but in fear of awakening, because a fully awake Africa is a threat to a global system built on our sleep. The day Africa begins to think for itself, stand for itself, and act for itself, the balance of power will shift in ways the world is not ready to face. That is why so much effort has gone into keeping Africa distracted, divided, and doubting itself. Because the world does not fear a poor Africa, the world fears a united, focused, and awake Africa. For decades, foreign powers have fed on Africa's confusion. They have planted puppets in leadership. They have robbed minerals through legal contracts written in foreign languages. They have built military bases not to protect us but to monitor us. They have made our leaders sign deals that benefit everyone but the people. And each time an African voice dares to rise and speak truth, it is silenced, not always by bullets, but by discredit, by division, by fear. Because if Africa wakes up, their game ends. They sell us aid, but steal our resources. They give us loans, but set the terms. They offer peace, but sell weapons. They preach democracy, but support dictators. And they do all this while smiling, while shaking hands, while attending summits that change nothing. And when some among us begin to question, they label us radicals, nationalists, or rebels. But all we are asking is simple: let Africa breathe, let Africa lead, let Africa own what belongs to her. The truth is, an awake Africa can feed itself. An awake Africa can educate its own children without foreign textbooks. An awake Africa can create industries, not just supply raw materials. An awake Africa can speak with one voice, not 54 divided ones. But the problem is, we have allowed others to define who we are. They taught us to believe that French and English are more important than Swahili or Yoruba. They taught us that foreign degrees mean more than local wisdom. They taught us that success means leaving the continent instead of building it, and slowly we accepted the lie that Africa must always follow. When a lion forgets it is a lion, even a sheep can rule it. And that is what has happened here. A continent of kings and queens, inventors and warriors, scientists and builders, now waits for instruction from outside. We ask others to validate our elections. We ask others to guide our economies. We ask others to tell us what democracy looks like, and while we wait they build, while we debate they extract, while we complain they profit. But let me ask you, why should others fear an awake Africa? It is because an awake Africa is independent. An awake Africa no longer accepts scraps. An awake Africa does not dance to the tune of others. An awake Africa writes its own script, chooses its own heroes, honors its own traditions, and sets its own course. And that kind of Africa is dangerous, not to the people, but to the systems that have kept us down. Awakening begins with one person, one mind refusing to be fooled, one voice refusing to stay silent, one action refusing to wait. If each of us wakes up, the continent will rise, because they cannot stop a people who know who they are. They cannot defeat a generation that knows its history. They cannot control a continent that has decided to control its destiny. But to awaken, we must stop fighting each other, tribe against tribe, region against region, religion against religion, all while those who divided us in the first place watch and smile. Division is their weapon. Unity is our power, and unity does not mean uniformity. It means knowing that before we are anything else, we are African. Our borders were drawn by outsiders, but our spirit must be drawn from within. There is a fire coming, a fire of awareness, a fire of youth who are no longer fooled, a fire of women who refuse to be silent, a fire of elders who are tired of watching their nations bleed. That fire cannot be stopped with propaganda or with bullets. Because once Africa opens its eyes, no power on earth can close them again. What good is awakening if it does not lead to action? What good is knowledge if it is not used to shape a new reality? We have heard enough speeches. We have analyzed enough problems. We have debated enough theories. The time has come for us to move from the realm of thought into the realm of action. Because the greatest tragedy is not ignorance. It is awareness without responsibility. It is when people know the truth but choose to do nothing. It is when we see clearly but remain comfortably still. That is the silent killer of progress, and it must end with us. There is a dangerous comfort that comes from complaining. It allows us to feel like we are doing something when we are doing nothing. We talk about bad leadership, but we don't lead ourselves. We criticize broken systems, but we refuse to build alternatives. We cry about corruption, yet we look for shortcuts. We demand justice, yet we remain silent when injustice benefits us. The truth is that real change requires more than emotion. It requires commitment. It requires sacrifice. It requires the courage to do what is right even when it is difficult, even when it is unpopular, even when it is lonely. You do not need to be a president to change your nation. You do not need to be a billionaire to transform your community. You do not need to wait for permission to act. You only need the willingness to begin, to start where you are, to use what you have, to move from complaining to contributing. From waiting to working, from criticizing to creating, because the future does not belong to the loudest voices. It belongs to the boldest hands, to those who do not just speak of change, but become it. If you are a student, study with purpose. Do not just chase certificate. Chase knowledge that solves problems. If you are a farmer, farm with excellence. Feed the nation with pride. If you are a teacher, teach with conviction. Shape minds that will shape the world. If you are a trader, sell with integrity. Build trust in every transaction. If you are a leader, lead with honor. Serve, do not exploit. Whatever your role, do it well. Because every honest effort is a step toward the Africa we deserve. Many of us wait for the perfect condition to begin, but perfection is a myth. No revolution started under perfect conditions. No movement was born in comfort. You act not because the time is perfect. You act because the time is now. You act because your children are watching. You act because your ancestors endured too much for you to do too little. You act because history is being written daily, and your name deserves a place in the chapter of those who rose when others waited. Understand this. The world respects action. It respects results. It respects those who turn vision into reality. And when you begin to act, others will follow. Your courage will become contagious. Your light will guide those still in darkness. Your example will embarrass those who are content with excuses. That is how movements are born. Not from grand speeches, but from quiet acts of responsibility that grow into unstoppable waves. Do not be discouraged by the size of the mountain. Do not be overwhelmed by the number of problems. Focus on what is in your hands. Fix what is broken around you. Mentor one child. Start one honest business. Plant one seed. Solve one problem. Build one community, and then multiply that effort. If millions of us do a little, the result will be massive. The power of consistent, humble, daily action is greater than any speech or policy. Action also demands discipline. It demands the ability to say no to distractions, to fight laziness, to reject mediocrity. It is not glamorous, and it will not always be applauded, but it is necessary, because empires are not built by noise. They are built by sweat, and Africa will not be built by wishes. It will be built by workers. Let us be those workers. Let us be known not just for our potential, but for our performance. Let it be said of us that we saw the truth, we believed in our power, we opened our eyes, and we chose to act. Not tomorrow, not when we were ready, but now, because change does not wait for permission. It waits for action.